You're listening to The Observing Eye. Pirate radio for the mind. Coming at you fresh from the computer hell cabin.
Hello, you beautiful lot. It's Friday, the 1st of December, 2023, and this is episode 41 of The Observing Eye, coming at you live from the computer hell cabin. As always, I like to begin these episodes with a brief moment of reflection. So, let's take a moment to consider the good things that have happened the past week. And now a moment for the not so good. This week we're going to be continuing our theme of personal well-being, but with a slight twist. In this episode, I'm going to be discussing two things. Firstly, personal well-being routines and strategies, and how that plays in to the well-being industry. And we're going to talk a little bit about the commoditization of well-being and my thoughts around that. So well-being, particularly during the pandemic, and I think post-pandemic even more so, is a word that's being thrown around a lot. We hear it in yoga studios, we hear it in corporate boardrooms, we hear it in the local pub and cafe. People are talking about well-being extensively. But what does well-being mean for you? For me, well-being is about feeling balanced, both mentally and physically. It's about the moments when I feel in tune with myself. But here's the thing, and this is something that I think it's important for all of us to bear in mind. What works for me is not necessarily going to work for you, and that's perfectly okay. This personal aspect of well-being is what makes it so unique and, in all honesty, makes it a fairly complex subject. So let's talk a little bit about the other side of the coin for a moment, the wellness industry, of which I have been a part. I guess I am a part of that in doing this podcast, but also my activities as a therapist have, firmly rooted me into that aspect of well-being. And I've seen, certain aspects of the industry, and I have my own thoughts on that, which I think we're going to dive into in a little bit. But the wellness industry then is absolutely booming. It's a huge thing, and it's become bigger and bigger over the past 10 years or so. There is no sign of it slowing down. It is a thing, it exists, and it is here in our lives. We've got mobile apps for meditation, we've got fitness classes, we've got meditation classes, we've got an endless array of supplements and things you can put in your mouth and stick up your bum. Suppositories here, and suppositories, people. It's great to have all of these options. It's a plethora, it's a smorgasbord of well-being choices that we have at our disposal, but it can also be quite overwhelming. How many times have you felt pressured to try the latest health trend or to buy the latest wellness product? We are constantly bombarded from all angles with various different tools, techniques, and potions that we can take and try and bolster our well-being. Now, this brings me on to a very important idea, which is the concept of toxic well-being. Now, that phrase, toxic well-being, I appreciate that it is probably going to sound contradictory at first. Well-being, as we all know, is supposed to be around feeling good. However, and this is the issue I have with some of the well-being industry that I'm seeing right now. When our well-being begins to feel like a pressure or a competition, it loses the essence of well-being. The idea that we have to engage in certain practices or use specific products in order to be well, in inverted commas, can be much more harmful than they are helpful. And I think we all know this intuitively. It's a very fine line, and this is the issue with it. It is such a fine line, and it's a line that we have to very carefully navigate. So how do we balance, then, our personal well-being with the influence of this giant industry that has come into being off the back of this. So firstly, and I mentioned this earlier, it is all about recognizing that there is no one-size-fits-all solution to our well-being. There is no off-the-shelf product, strategy, or concept that is going to work for everybody. Wellness is distinctly personal. It's about finding what resonates with us, whether that's a quiet walk in the park, an absolute beast session in the gym, or just a few minutes of deep breathing. It's all about experimenting and listening to our body and listening to our mind. So when it comes to exploring these different wellness and well-being strategies and trends, it's important that we are mindful, that we approach it with an aspect of mindfulness. Not every wellness trend or product is going to be worth our time or our money or our investment. Do your research, try things out, but most importantly, trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right for you, then step back and say, no, that's okay. I'm just going to go this my own way. With that in mind, then, let's go back to fundamentals. Let's break this down into things that we can do to try and improve our sense of well-being. Now, for me, and again, this is not a one-size-fits-all, but my experience, my understanding, is that there are three components to our well-being. There's the body, there's the mind, and then there's community, okay? And by community, I mean like our social aspect. Socialism is very important. Let's not get political. Our social side is an important aspect of looking after ourselves. You know, we are very social, tribal creatures by nature. And, none of us are an island, right? So having those social connections can be an important part of the well-being process. I'm going to start with the body. Now, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a personal trainer. All I'm going to say, I'm going to say what I think, and, it's going to be very basic, but I think we all know this. Do some exercise and don't eat shit. I think those fundamentally, look after the body and don't put crap into the body for fuel, and make sure you drink plenty of water, keep hydrated. Those are the fundamentals. I'm going to give you no advice other than that. Do exercise, don't eat shit, and drink water. That's your body advice from me. But we all know this. And if you want to go and find out more ways of working on that aspect, then there is a wealth of information and knowledge out there in the interdimensional interweb for you to be able to go and have a look and research that yourself. What I can talk a little bit about, where I'm much more qualified, is around aspects of the mind and how we can work on areas of that to try and improve our well-being. So I'm going to give you a few thoughts and ideas and strategies on that, and you can pick some and see if they work for you, and if not, you can try something else. Nice and simple, okay? I'm going to start with probably what is the elephant in the room, and that is if you are genuinely feeling like you are struggling and you can't get out of a particular rut and you're having a really hard time coping, I would distinctly signpost you towards looking at some therapy. Now, I know it can be tricky to get into. I've had some myself, and I can say it's absolutely fabulous. Therapists getting therapy. We are the walking wounded, but it's a really important thing to try if you've not. And I know there can be a bit of a barrier for it, and I appreciate that it is. In going to seek therapy, it can be an acknowledgement, a genuine acknowledgement that there is an issue, and that can be very challenging to go through. But it is worth it just to have a conversation, to work things through with someone that knows what they're doing. So if you are struggling, I would implore anyone out there to go and get some help. Go and speak to a therapist if you can, because it can make the world of difference in how you're feeling. And I know that from experience. I'm going to talk a little bit now about meditation, which is something I also know a reasonable amount about. Now, again, this is what works for me. I'm giving you my thoughts, the things that I do to try and work on my well-being. And again, this may not work for you, but it's something for you to consider, something for you to maybe try in the future and see whether it works or not, So meditation then. I think there's a real benefit I find in meditation in that, in exactly the same way as exercising or working out, is really great for the body. I find the meditation is really, really great for the mind. It does exactly the same thing. It kind of energizes. It gives me some clarity. It enables me to reflect on some of those negative emotions that might be coming up. Meditation can be a tricky one to get into, and having spoken with people who have tried to get into meditating, and some from my own experience as well, I think the trickiest part of getting into meditation is the fact that we are simply sitting in quiet with ourselves. And that can be a very, very unusual and unsettling experience on some levels. We live in a world where we are constantly bombarded and constantly distracted by things. There are all sorts of stuff is vying for our attention that we very, very rarely take time to just sit with ourselves. So this is where it can be a little bit uncomfortable, because the mind is going, well, what the hell is this? This is new. Not entirely sure that I like it. And it can be a little bit, off-putting. But perseverance, stick with it. And eventually, not after very long, it becomes comfortable. And we can get into this space where we can really reflect on things that are going on internally. So meditation is our ability to be introspective, to look inwards and to understand some of the thoughts and motivations that are going on for us. It takes time to get to that space, which is why we have to be persistent in our practice. Again, in exactly the same way as, you go to a gym, you haven't been to the gym for like a year, and the first thing you do is try and like deadlift 200 kilos. Don't be doing that, because we all know it's going to cause us an injury. But meditation is the same thing. We can't go into meditation thinking, right, I'm just going to sit here for an hour in silence and quieten my mind, and then I'm going to completely understand myself. It is a gradual thing that builds up over time, like all things do. So don't be disheartened if it's a bit challenging. Stick with it. Put in the hours. And from my opinion, my experience is that it is a deeply, deeply rewarding and insightful experience that can massively raise our self-awareness. And self-awareness, if you followed any of these podcasts before, is where all of our self-development and change and positive growth happens, through the application of self-awareness. So meditation in that sense can be a really powerful tool for our own wellness. And we have this other idea, which I'm going to dive into a bit, which is around journaling and noting down our thoughts and keeping a track of how we are thinking and what we're feeling and how we're responding to stuff each day. It's something that I've been getting into quite a lot recently, and I'm finding it incredibly useful just to keep track of what's going on for me internally, and to use that as part of my personal growth, my self-development, to kind of go back and think, this particular Tuesday I was feeling a bit glum and stressed and what have you, and these are some of the reasons why I think I was feeling that. So it enables me to spot trends and to see what potential triggers there might be to me having negative emotions around stuff. So it's quite, in that sense, I'm finding it quite useful to be able to go, sort of look back and spot things, and maybe once a week just kind of go through what I've written and have a bit of an assessment and a reflection on what's been going on that week. Because it's very easy for time to turn into this continuous blur, and for us to very quickly forget our experiences and some of the things that are going on, because we're not going to remember everything. I'm like today, I'm feeling like, it's been a good week. I'm pretty chill, feeling content. Everything's going well. But, I could go back to my journal and then think, actually, there was some stuff happening on Monday that wasn't great. So, but I've very quickly forgotten about that. I've gone back to that default state. I talked about hedonic adaptation a little while ago in a previous episode, where we tend to fall back to a baseline of contentment, of happiness, and I'm certainly on that baseline right now. But it's good to be able to go back and reflect on stuff, and to have something to trigger some self-reflection and some thinking around that. So journaling, super useful. It's also good to get stuff out of your head. The process of of taking an emotion, of a set of feelings, and verbalizing them. If you're not doing it to a therapist, to do it into a journal, to turn it into words, to construct it, changes the perspective of that emotion, of that feeling. So putting something into words, to take it out of the mind, to put it on paper, fundamentally what the word psychedelic means, the mind made manifest. It's our psychedelic journal, baby. We're gonna be putting our thoughts down on paper, making the mind manifest, bringing it into the world and constructing it so we can look at it from a different angle, and then go back and look at it when we aren't in the same headspace, when we are back on that baseline, hopefully on that baseline of contentment. So those are some of the things that I personally use. I love meditating, ting. It happened later than usual. If you've listened to these podcasts before, you'll know that in every single episode, there is a point where I lose my words. And that was it. We were around 15 minutes in. So that was good going for me. That was a prolonged period of not having a mad da moment. So should we try that again? I enjoy meditating and journaling, and I love reading things around stoicism and philosophy and all of that kind of stuff. So that's my technique on keeping my mind in a good state. So, you may want to give some of them a try. You've probably got your own routine for wellness, which works for you. And I would actually be keen to hear that. So if you've got any thoughts around your own wellness strategy that you'd like to share, you can jump onto the Substack, which is theobservingi.substack.com. That's a letter I, not the gelatinous organ through which you see. Go on there. There's a comment section. You can chuck some comments in. Or if you're listening on the old YouTube, you can put some comments in under the video. I would be really keen to hear what different strategies and techniques people are using for their own well-being. Lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about social and community connection. I'm not going to dive into this in too much depth because I want to try and keep these podcasts to a certain level of brevity. And again, I think it's something that we all know. Social community is an important aspect of the human experience, and it's something that we all need to one extent or another, some people more than others. It's important to understand the level of social connection that we require in order to incorporate that into our well-being. For me, I'm a huge introvert, so I like having a small group of people that I know well around me. I'm not great in, going out in large parties because it drains my social battery like no man's business. But that works for me, and I know that. I know that I require deep connection with a small group, and that's my social connection strategy. If you're an extrovert, you're likely going to be exactly the opposite. You're going to want to have a big group of people that you can talk to and chat with, and you're going to recharge by going out and being around people, and that is great as well. But it's important to understand what connection levels work for you. If you're an introvert and you're forcing yourself into those extrovert positions and you're feeling absolutely exhausted by it, then question whether that's working for you. Basically, we've got to go by what we feel, and if fundamentally, all of this well-being stuff boils down to listening to our mind and our body, trusting our gut, trusting our instinct. Don't force ourselves into places, positions, and arenas where we may, we think that this is the right thing that we should be doing, but all other sensory aspects of the experience are telling us that no, this is not cool. We need to change this. So it's really, really important to listen to what your mind and body are telling you. Pay attention to it. And that's where self-awareness becomes so important. It becomes so important that we can be able to recognize what's going on, to listen to the gut, and trust it. Trust it, because it knows. The gut always knows. And like with all of these well-being things, it's about balance. It's not about I'm getting up at 4 a.m., I'm diving into a cold plunge tank, followed by a sauna, then a 2-hour run, and then I'm just eating raw broccoli all day, and I'm getting 7.25 hours of rest every night. It's what works for you. It shouldn't be a competition. It shouldn't be pressure. If you're coming at your well-being from an aspect of anxiety, that's not coming at your well-being. That's you trying to push yourself into a space that you shouldn't be in. It's all about balance and how you feel. That's all it comes down to. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I shall be saying on the subject of the well-being journey and looking after ourselves this week. Thank you, as always, to all of you who have spent some time out of your day listening to me go on about looking after yourself. It is deeply appreciated. I am thankful to each and every one of you that comes here and has a listen to this stuff. And I hope that it's useful to you. I hope that there's some stuff in this that you can take away and that can be of benefit to you at the end of it. So thank you, everyone. As it's Friday, I'd like to wish you all a wonderful weekend. I hope it is restful and rejuvenating and that you get some time to spend on your well-being. You can take a bit of time out for yourself and to look after you. Have a wonderful one, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.
You've been listening to The Observing Eye. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope that you found it useful. And if you're interested in any more of my writings or work around psychology and philosophy and general day-to-day living, please go and take a look at my Substack, which is theobservingeye.substack.com, and that's I as in the letter, not I as in the gelatinous organ through which you see. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll see you soon.